Another drink, sir? Boris, King of Oxford, didn't look like he needed another drink. He reclined in awkward repose upon a blue velvet 18th century chaise longue, resplendent in a silk Japanese robe and little else. Except for the crown, of course. One must not forget the crown. Boris never did. He turned his head towards the very nice man who was offering him another drink. "A humble measure would suit me decorously, old bean," Boris replied. His obliging companion was his permanently irritated butler, Snetterton. I say his butler. Snetterton had buttled at Blenheim Palace for over 30 years before King Boris had declared his sovereignty and booted out the Duke of Marlborough, claiming the estate for his own. "And what form will the humble measure take this time, sir?" "Oh, well, what was the last one?" "The last one was a creme de menthe, sir," replied Snetterton, eyebrow twitching furiously. "The one before that was a Pernod." Before the bemused Boris could answer, an almighty crash and shower of shattered glass erupted from the bay windows, encouraged, no doubt, by the trilby-wearing figure travelling through it apace. Boris sat up with a start, causing the silken robe to suppress yet less of his sturdy assemblage. Snetterton tutted. "It would appear that Mr. Nigel Farage is here to see you, sir." "Farage! Bing bang bully-o for that. Well, if it's Farage invading my secretary's shack, I suppose it had better be pints all round, what?" Snetterton effectuated the most subtle eye roll known to man. "Certainly, sir. 2 pints of what, would you suggest?" "Chablis, if you will, Snetterton. Cheesy-eyed, you bugger." Boris flung his arms wide, inviting a manly embrace. King Boris had devised the nickname Cheesy-eyed from frequent and deliberate mispronunciations of Farage as fromage. Farage tolerated it, on the grounds that he had been called far worse. While Snetterton retreated to the drinks cabinet, Nigel got uneasily to his feet and limped towards what he deemed to be a distinctly uninviting-looking Boris. Keen to avoid any physical contact, Nigel perched himself at the far end of the chaise longue and cast furtive glances in the direction of an industrious Snetterton. "Quite an entrance you made there, chum," remarked Boris. "That calls for a drink. Huzzah!" "It was your bloody dogs," Nigel cried. "They chased me all the way from the bloody car park." "It's not a car park, you ridiculous peasant. It is a sweeping approach." Snetterton returned with 2 magnificent pints of Chablis, and the mood improved immediately. "So, what word have you from the blasted other place?" asked Boris, hardly noticing that a small pool of Chablis had gathered in his navel. "Well, they nicked my dusters for a start." "The bastards! But they definitely do have Blair. He's tied to a chair in the kitchen at number 10. Boris took another gulp of wine, managing to keep most of it in the region of his mouth. "Aha! Just as I thought." Boris punctuated his proclamation with wild jabs of his enormous fist. "But how to winkle him out? What's the security situation like? Big burly buggers brandishing blunderbusses and whatnot?" "Well, there's a rather erratic woman with a broom," replied Nigel, "and the Chancellor of the Exchequer looks like he's got a good right hook on him. Left hook too, really." Well," Boris huffed a moment. "I'm not sure we're up to taking on brooms and the ilk. Definitely not Chancellors either. Vicious bastards." "I thought you were on the verge of going to war with them," spluttered Nigel, almost spilling his pint. "Well..." Huffs became harumphs, as Boris sought the appropriate terminology. "It is one thing to be on the verge of war, and quite another to be actually at war. I see how the simpler sorts might confuse the two, but let me be clear, it really is quite straightforward." "So, you're not going to war, then?" Listen. You know how it is, don't you old roistered oyster?" Boris almost toppled as he reached over to slap Nigel amiably on the back. "Old Bozzer had been on the sauce with some bum chums from the Bullingdon, and things got a bit out of hand, you might say. Ended up ringing the PM, Carpe Diem, and before you can say boo to a kipper, I've gone and got the big guns out. And then I declared war. Ha 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 ha. But anyway, it's quite the pickle I now find in my sandwich. Make no mistake about it." Boris motioned for Snetterton to refill their glasses. "Might I make a suggestion, sir?" Snetterton asked, plucking his master's glass rather forcefully from his hand. "If you're not going to war, then perhaps you should try the other method. The other method? Boris creased his brow before it hit him. Aha! Right you are. Well, that particular area is Boz's eminent dominion. I shall get right on it. A small groan from Snetterton. Sir, I was thinking of diplomacy. Oh, that! Boris was crestfallen just slightly. No doubt I can incorporate elements of statecraft into my offensive if I really am compelled to do so, but really, Snetterton, you should know me by now. Indeed, sir. So what are you actually going to do? Nigel asked, really getting into his stride with the Shabbly now. Why, I shall do no more than seduce the Prime Minister, Boris roared triumphantly. By the loins of Eros, I shall settle our dispute not with the art of war, but with the art of love. Well, the art of a naughty fumble, perhaps. Nonetheless, in the hands of King Boris, she will be as that stuff that holds the windows in. Putty, sir. Don't be so disgusting, Snetterton. Are you really sure that will work? Nigel squinted, doubtful. Absolutely it will. Boris jumped to his feet. Belts off, trousers down, and diplomatic relations will be restored in less time than it takes to boil an egg. Huzzah!